Good afternoon, everybody. It's time for another Partner First, as we like to do. It is the OITVOIP Partner First presents how to look and sound your best on your live stream or your webinars, on your video calls. We're so excited to have you. Today, we're doing it a little differently. Instead of having one esteemed guest, I have 4 esteemed guests. Let's say I did the math right. So we're going to do this panel style. As always, we're going to be talking to everybody in the audience and asking questions and getting your feedback, answering things live. But also, we're going to get the benefit of experience from several people that have been doing this a long time. So first and foremost, I want to welcome the dynamic duo. I got Dave Sobel and Sharon Sobel. How you doing, guys?
Great.
Really good.
Awesome. And then also I have straight from California, from the Inland Empire, and also from his YouTube empire, Mr. BJ. How you doing,
Hey,
BJ?
doing great. How about yourself? Yeah.
Good, man. Thanks for being on. And last but very much not least, we have out of Nashville, Tennessee, Mr. Lauren Thomas of Prism Technology. How you doing, Lauren?
Doing great. It's great to be here.
Thank you guys all for joining. This should be a very exciting and fun webinar. We've seen 2020. We got relegated to doing these video calls nonstop. We learned the benefits of doing content, pre-recorded content, whether we wanted to or not. And now I see Sean and Keith already in the father and son already in the chat. But we've seen that how important it is to put our best foot forward. It doesn't look like these video calls are going to be stopping anytime soon. So we have this panel of experts, and we'll go through introducing each one. Dave, we're going to leave you for last because there's a lot of your content online.
Least important. I'm definitely the least important. Go for it.
Well, you're definitely the most notorious. So let's, we'll save the best for last, right? So Lauren, let's start with you, man. MSP based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Obviously, you got a beautiful setup going behind you. Can you give us just high level, what's Prism, what you do, and what you've done to get here so far?
Yeah, so Prism is a managed IT service provider, as you said, out of Nashville, and we've got clients here in the Middle Tennessee region. Primarily, that's who we work with, or small and medium-sized businesses, mostly with 10 or so employees or greater. And so we've been doing this for about 5 years. We do some project work from time to time, but and I apologize. I think the video is a little stuttery there. Not sure what's going on that. We're gonna see if we can improve.
All
that,
good.
but
You look good anyway, man. It's all good. And your experience with video so far, you don't have pre-recorded content on YouTube yet, right? You don't have stuff you put out on LinkedIn. It's been mostly webinars, or what's your experience?
We do have a little bit of content on our YouTube channel, but it's very minimal up to this point. Most of what we do with our setup here is interfacing with clients, doing Zoom and team calls. So most of that is a live type of configuration.
Awesome. BJ, now you're not only doing the videos with clients and the webinar stuff, you also have a significant amount of YouTube experience with your channel. We were talking about that in the last half decade. It's kind of blown up. Why don't you tell us about you, what you do over in California, and why you're on the call?
Sure. So my partner and I own a small MSP here in Southern California. So we're about 60 miles east of LA. In the grandest named place called the Inland Empire. But basically, we support kind of the same thing that Lauren does, the SMB space, 10, 15 users to 50, 100, somewhere in that space. We, as kind of a lark, started a YouTube channel to create just simple how-to things for our clients. Everyone has problems with putting it out of office, and nobody wants to really spend time on the phone training them. But if you can send them a video, we save ourselves time, they're happy. But it ended up turning into a couple thousand views a month, then it's 10,000 views a month, and we're consistently around 50, 60,000 views a month now, with 300-400 new subscribers every single month. So it kind of has started as an accident, but then has turned into a decent, really decent project that with a little bit of work we could take quite a bit further.
Yeah, and that's a good point that we're going to talk about today. There's different reasons for doing video. There's different. It's not always about your pre-recorded content. It's not about YouTube subscribers. It might be about revenue generation. There's many different reasons that MSP should care about video. And while Lauren is typically doing live stuff and he has some pre-recorded stuff, and BJ has pre-recorded and it does his live stuff. And you know me, I'm 100% live all the time. Our next two guests. While Dave does public speaking engagements and plenty of those, and I think you have another one coming up now with the Compass Group I saw. But you're more normally in the area of pre-recorded content. The reason I'm going to bring up Dave and Sharon together is because this dynamic duo, you may see him on camera, but the reason he looks good on camera in those recordings and sounds great and those videos are engaging is because of the hard work Sharon puts in on the background. So Sharon, why don't you introduce yourself first and tell us a little about your background and your experience?
Sure. I've been doing video since high school. Not going to age myself. You can do that on your own, but it is all I know. And so in 2003, I took my business full time to support small businesses, organizations, nonprofits with video solutions for their communications needs. And in the past couple of years, I've been focusing more on not only making the videos that people ask me to make, but having deeper conversations about why they are making those videos in the first place and what they plan to do with them. Because video is not a cheap venture when you engage a professional. I'm not saying that I'm expensive, but if you are going to spend money hiring a professional, why not get the most value with that dollar? So that's what I'm trying to do for my customers at this point.
Absolutely. And Dave Sobel, you know, I shouldn't even have to introduce you, but I will anyway. You know, you hear his voice on MSP radio. You know, he's done plenty of speaking engagements, giving his opinions. Dave, why don't you give us your background, not just with MSP radio, but your SolarWinds alum before that, right?
Sure. So I was an MSP for a decade and then sold that business and went off to be a channel chief, right? So I led communities and efforts for Level Platforms first. We sold that to ABG. Then I was with GFI, which became Logic Now, which of course we sold to SolarWinds, and I stayed there 3 years doing the community growth efforts for those organizations. And when I moved beyond that, I said, you know, what I really wanted to do was take my thinking and create a media company. I wanted to create a content production shop where my audience was providers, was IT providers, MSPs, anybody thinking about that. And I said, you know, if I'm going to do this, I want to do something a little different. I started with the idea of I'm going to build some podcasts, and that's become podcasts and video production stuff. And that's where Sharon and I partnered up to think through how that was all going to look.
And I love it. And that's, you know, and that's really important because, you know, as you go into this, you know, first and foremost, we're going to talk about how to get your video and audio from okay to being fantastic. And I think we have varying degrees even here, but we have some examples also. Excuse me. But, you know, first and foremost, you know, as technophiles, we like to think about what gear are we going to use and, you know, what format are we going to record in? And it doesn't start with that, right? It starts with the why. What are you doing? You know, Simon Sinek, we've all read that book, hopefully, but it's more why we're doing what we're doing. So why don't we start with your why, Lauren? You're not a professional AV person. You're not a professional podcast host or anything else, but you've obviously taken great care to set up your scene and sound fantastic. And I don't care about the stuttering. This video still looks you know, your picture still looks great. So why don't you tell me why you decided to make this effort?
Yeah. So for us, I mean, we're huge on quality, right? And delivering a quality service to our customers. And we want to reflect that even in our conversation that we now have. A lot of these conversations are taking place virtually. So everyone's had to adapt a bit and kind of, you know, learn over the last year or so. And so that's where we've been headed, is just trying to increase kind of our quality of what we're doing. And this is, as I said, kind of a reflection of that. So.
That makes a lot of sense. BJ, what about you, man? You said you didn't do the, you started doing your videos to help clients. It wasn't to generate revenue, even though that happened. And we had a little pre-show discussion as to, it may not have been on purpose at first, but you definitely have to make an active effort to improve things as you go on, right? It doesn't just,
For sure.
the team doesn't keep going just because, by luck. It never happens that way. But when you started, what was your why? Was it just about client education? Was it just, I wanted to look on a camera? Because you're a gear guy. You and I have talked about gear plenty of times. Why is it? What drives you to do this stuff?
Oh goodness. Yeah, I'm gonna go hit his so they can subscribe as well. So the long and the short, I mean, the YouTube was, part of it was just client education. Most of the videos I'm not in or part of, like, we ended up finding somebody who could create and like start to finish make all of the videos for us. No, honestly, the quality is way better than if I do it. So we found a couple of subcontractors that just helped us out on that front a lot. And then as far as just the why for, Lauren's right. We have so many conversations with clients virtually now. I mean, at any given day, I'm probably in 2 or 3 Zoom, Teams, some kind of conversation. And I think it looks bad if the IT person has a terrible setup and looks, I mean, I could have spent a lot more than I have, but at the same time, it's like, it does what I need. I feel like it looks good and solid. It's a good representation of who I am and what our company does, and I don't know. We are doing so much of it. I just want to look good while doing it, or as good as possible.
And that's a good point, right? Because it's not just about it's not just about the client, but you're making your presentation. The whole reason we actually, within our company, we require video calls when we meet with clients. Our own internal meetings, we require video calls, whether it's on Teams or anything else. And it, to the public, it does the same thing with us internally, that it improves the relationship you have. It's easy to say, oh, that person's a pain in the butt. It's just a name on a screen or a signature on a ticket. But when they see a face, when they have a personal engagement with you, even if it's over video, the dynamic of the relationship is completely different. Video allows us to do that. And I think that's the thing that's sorely missed. But the catch-22, or the opposite side of the coin on that, is when you're doing this video, they're seeing you for all the good, the bad, and the other, right? So you have to take great care in your presentation. It's no different than walking into a prospective client store the first time and saying, hi, I'm so-and-so from such and such. You wouldn't do that with a torn t-shirt and ragged jeans. You want to put your best foot forward. So being on video, it's the same thing. You have the same requirements. Would you agree to that, Sharon?
I would agree. Is this a good time for me to talk about my background?
So we're gonna talk about it because we didn't want to call anybody out, and I think Sharon, even not even on purpose, she's helping out this episode because we talked about we wanted to show good and bad examples, and I was trying to be as PC as possible without hurting anybody's feelings. I asked Simon to go get me examples, and then Sharon comes in and she starts the pre-show with, "Look, this is not what I would put on camera," but it serves to make a good point. There's good, bad, and otherwise. Unfortunately, my white balance and my lighting correction is working a little too good. The room I'm in is actually very dark. This is not something I would ever tell anybody to do. But oops, sorry. I just the joys of pop-ups and working in Chrome. We talk about having good lighting. We talk about having good background, having a good set up. Sharon, as the post-production one, as the one that gets to go through videos with a fine-tooth comb, as the one that gets to watch every minute over and over and over again to nitpick and find out what you like and what you don't like, I'd like you to go through our scenes and give us your professional interpretation. And also, I want to hear tips and questions from the audience. And we do have a giveaway today. Whoever I get the best question from, as chosen by Simon, not by me, we have a perfect for this episode. If I do proper product placement. The Parrot Padcaster turns any telephone into a teleprompter. I use one of these myself, and I bought this extra one, not sponsored. I bought it by mistake. I figured I'd rather give it to you guys than sending it back. But let's hear those questions and tips. So, Sharon, we can start first with let's start with Lauren. What do you like and what don't you like about his video besides the stuttering? Let's ban with.
Okay.
We can do that for now.
Okay. So Lauren himself looks good. His lighting is very even. There is a lot of purple going on in the background. I'm not sure why. I'm not a fan. I'll be honest. I'm just going to be candid here, so just deal with it. So it's a lot of purple, and I think maybe purple on one side would be okay, but I can't stop looking at the purple. All right. But his lighting is good. His sound is good from when I heard him speaking, so that's great. I will speak for myself, and this might be his situation. I am challenged by the fact that there are no windows in my place here. I'm in the basement, and I'm in a corner with the background behind me. I got to go for myself too. What's the problem here? There's a lot of distracting things happening back there. I know everyone's looking at it. But this is my setup when I'm on Zoom calls, when I'm chatting with people. This is my office. However, if I was to make a video like as a presentation, I'm giving you facts, I'm dropping facts about video, I would not be here. I have another place. It's not like Lauren's. It's a pink wall, not a purple wall. But there's some solidness back there, and it's not distracting like I know this is. Okay, can I move off of Lauren? I don't like this.
Yeah, we can. So I do like Lauren's purple. I'm getting ready for his Twitch stream. I'm ready. I'm going to follow playing classic Doom. I'm in. Got my fiery Cheetos ready to go. But no, let's move on to BJ, because BJ chose to take now he could just say, okay, this is green screen, this is virtual background, and I'm done. BJ went and had actually had an image created for this purpose, which I love, right? If you're going to show an office space, make it yours. And I love that. I want to ask first, BJ, are you using a real green screen or is this a virtual green screen?
No, it's a real green screen.
Okay. Could kind of
you can tell based on I'm a tiny bit green. I've been trying to figure out my color balance.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's
a challenge.
But sorry.
Well, and you don't get the crisp edges with virtual green screens I've seen. Mm-hmm. You only get good edging with a real green screen, which is a pain in the butt to light properly. But BJ, would you mind? Can you kill the virtual background real quick so they can see what it looks like?
Hang on.
Because I'm sure Sharon's seen enough examples of bad green screening too, where it's improperly, ununiformly lit, or you have bright spots.
So many different ways it can go wrong. So many different ways.
I look really fun this way because I removed the background and you can tell where I chroma keyed it.
Have a green screen, wear a green shirt.
Yeah, that was I have a green mug in the office, and I was on a client meeting, and I was like, oh. That was funny.
So, Sharon, go ahead. What do you like and don't like about BJ's setup?
This background here, I like not the least, second least, because of that long ceiling situation over your right shoulder.
Sure.
Okay. My worst one was just the logo behind your head.
Okay.
That was the worst for obvious reasons. Oh, wow.
I could do Santa. No, I'm joking.
Or not. And then my favorite was the one that you just showed a minute ago where it was on a poster.
Got it. I can add that back.
It was like on a poster. That one felt the most natural to me. Like it really looked like he actually might be in an office. I want to say one thing about the virtual background situation, because I do remote recording with people through the interwebs, and depending on what you're using, this is why, Lauren, I asked you if you had a virtual background going on. Sometimes the interwebs will choke up on having to do so much with your computer, and I realize I'm speaking like a child on an IT group. That's okay. if it's trying to get your image across and do all the math for your virtual background, that's the one I like the best, BJ. It's too much and something's got to give. So sometimes, depending on the platform you're on or what you're using for recording, your background will just go away. The computer will say, no, too much. I can't do it. I've seen it happen. So BJ's got the best idea as far as if you don't want to show your background, do a green screen, but it does get tricky with the lighting. So kudos to you for trying that out, BJ. You're doing a good job. It sounds good, and your lighting is even. So
I do like this one better, just because you see a lot of mistakes sometimes when they try to do a virtual background where they try to make it this enormous space.
Yeah.
And realistically, if you're in a big space, first of all, audio sounds horrible in a wide open space like that if you really had a microphone there. Two, if you have an open space like that, you would have people moving in and around. There'd be movement behind, and that's not going to happen typically with a virtual background.
That's why I like the first one least, because that's what was happening.
You know, and so that's why I like this more personal close up. And I honestly, you could have fooled me. I would have thought, it's good. And so you see,
you tell a marketing person made it because it's got Macs in it, and we don't have any like. This is what you get. I'm like, modern office. Oh, can we get a modern office with a PC in it?
So we can talk about bad virtual green screen. We can talk about this or not. I prefer not to. Sharon, go ahead. You can beat me up. You can do your worst. I'll go ahead and turn off my lights and everything so you can make fun of me.
Oh man. So okay. So to your left, that light source that's over there, is that natural light?
That is a natural light with the window open and the blinds open. Absolutely.
I definitely like the idea of people having light on their face. If you can find it, I can't find it in my basement, but if you can find it, it's a great source without having to buy extra lights. Now, the trick is if you are going to be doing a presentation in the evening, you better figure that out because your light's going to be gone.
Absolutely.
But
anything else you would mention here?
For you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you probably have the same situation as me, a bit cluttered, but I know that's where you work. It doesn't really personally bother me. It probably bothers you more than it bothers me. Because I got to embrace what I got going on too.
And to be fair, this is not my normal video setup. These are things I would use an example as not to do. Sharon's exactly right. I sit there and I do balance actually different times of the day. I have a key light. I have a fill light. My fill light is typically lower during the daytime and changes because I have a west facing window because the natural daylight is so much better. My key light is color matched to the daylight on purpose so it doesn't look bad. Normally during the day, I have that, especially after 11 o'clock in the morning because I'm on the east coast of Florida. I close the blinds on that so I don't have the hot spots in my face,
right?
Because it can be distracting, and it sounds silly to say all these things. I want to be very clear. We get to nitpick. You do a couple thousand of these videos, you get to nitpick these things. But the truth of the matter is, you always want to be doing better, and these are things that either consciously or subconsciously the viewer will notice. Now, if you hear that rumbling, that's another perfect example. I have an open window. I have a ton of noise outside. I have a very sensitive mic that I know better than to touch while I'm talking. Normally when I'm on video, I'll mute myself if I'm not talking.
Yeah, and I even said, like, I've got a blackout screen on the one window in my office so that for certain ones, particularly like when I'm doing the new weekly video show, I'll only use that so that the light is only the stuff from inside the office, so that I know no matter what time of day I happen to shoot that always looks the same. So that has a particular color look versus right now it's open. I know that the sun's not super intense till like 3 p.m. So then it would have to be closed. Like I know those kinds of things. And again, can compensate the lighting.
You start to learn for it. And so speaking of that clutter, the box I have behind me, we've all seen this, right? We've seen trash and stuff behind you, or, especially Amazon boxes, stuff like that. This is my example of what not to do. So, I'm not going to let Sharon pick apart Dave's background because that would be unfair. I'm going to let Lauren go first while I go off camera and correct all this stuff as I would normally see it. Lauren, what do you think about Dave's setup here, man?
I think overall it's pretty good. I mean, for me, I guess it's a little. I mean, I do think it's intentional with what you've got in the background, but at the same time, it's a little busy. I obviously you see my video. I mean, I kind of like it a little more, plain, but still kind of creative at the same time. Of course, to answer Sharon's question about the purple, our logo has a lot of purple in it, so that's kind of where that comes from, and helps us kind of relate when we're talking with customers. So, but yeah, going back to Dave and just kind of what his space is, it looks functional from the term of, it looks like he's also working there and doing other things. And just like you, Ray, I think it's, I don't think there's anything wrong with capturing kind of, realistically what your setup looks like. But yeah, as you say, trying to clean up, just removing those boxes, keeping it as clean as you can is always a plus.
But Lauren, you're exactly right. It is actually intentional. Like the choices that I find the balance of busy versus not, and the items chosen are intentional. Like they are to convey certain.
And I want to get into messaging. Right after BJ gives his review of your room, I want to get into that because without fail, each of us have made intentional decisions to our background. Sharon, does this look any better? We got the practicals on, the lighting blocked, the color balanced, the trash gone.
I notice a difference, but it still looks good. Can we talk about how everybody is pretty much at eye level with their camera? Because that's an important part of looking good. And everybody here has done that.
Yes, please give yourself eye level with the camera. I'm actually a little above, but I do it on purpose. But give yourself ample space between the top of the frame and the top of your head. Don't have it cut off at your forehead or any of that nonsense. Brian, I see you. We are going to get into gear, but I think you'll be surprised because the gear is far less important to what we're doing. So I'm purposely leaving that later. BJ, what's your take on Dave's setup?
I mean, honestly, the placement is very consistent. So like there's space for your head, and there's nothing like sticking out of your head. That it's like technical, techie looking without being look like a computer shop threw up in your office. Some people's backgrounds, that's kind of what it looks like. But yeah, no, overall I really like it. It does look on purpose, and just having everything framed around your head.
Well, thank my video producer wife, who when I redid the office, like we literally, you can say like placement of the shelf, like measurements and stuff was done based on angles. And it's also designed so if you've ever watched any of my videos, you'll see that I can stand in different locations, I can use it in different ways. This is the live, like to this camera view. I have different ones for like a stand up, for different angles that I can use for different reasons.
And that's an important thing too. Just as much as consistency of video and audio quality, I mean that needs to be consistent across whatever you're doing, because it does get jarring when you see different things. But also, once you have that format that you like, it is good to have a couple different setups. I've seen Lauren with he's done the white lights on versus the purple. Dave, I know you have your stand-up place that you do. I've seen, and then the podcast has a different. BJ, you have your different setups as well. If you've ever done video with Sean is in a different location every single call. I do calls with Sean 10 times a day, and on 10 different calls, he's in 10 different places, which is absolutely amazing. But let's talk about design choices, right? Dave, you've talked often about the care you've taken in selecting what you have in your background. You want to walk us through 2 or 3 of the things in your background and why you put them there?
Yeah. So, and Sean in chat was sort of even holding it out. Like, he's exactly right. I've made choices of my retro computers to show that I've been like, these are the computers that I worked on. Like the 2GS is the one I learned to program on. The Commodore 64 is the one I learned that I ran my BBS on. Like that, like those are intentional, right? The business sign here, the strategic plan choice, like that's about like I'm a business thinker on that, right? Like so that's that choice. The video game choices are intentional, and I always listen. I love it when I get on a call with somebody because I listen for they always go, "Oh, your office is really cool," and I go, "Oh, what did you notice?" And I'm asking, what did they notice, to understand their placement and what interests them. So like a lot of people will go, "Is that a power glove?" Like, "Oh yeah, it's a power glove." Like, and I know, so okay, they're probably a child of the 80s. If they go, "Oh, is that Overwatch?" And like the Overwatch stuff or the Overwatch stuff here, I know they're probably going to skew younger, right? Because they playing a more modern game. I happen to play both, right? Like, so I'm cool with both. Or if they go, "Oh, it's the computer," like I can get insight into who they are based on what they're interested in, and the choices of each of those items relate me to different portions of my audience. If I think about the MSP space, right, like we've got guys who've been doing this that are around, they're the ones that'll tell me about the punch cards they used to work on, right? They're the ones gravitating to the older retro computers. The ones I'm in my 40s, the guys that are relating to the retro gaming gear are the ones that are going to be like my contemporary, versus the younger ones who are going to be latching onto the newer video game stuff. And it gets me to my spectrum of audience with those choices of items in my space, yet I relate to them, to all of them.
And the industry term, Sharon, please correct me if I'm wrong, the elements in the background that are for visual effect, and they're called practicals, right? That would be the proper term for this. She's going to correct me. My own podcast. Go ahead, Sharon.
The practicals refers to lights, like a lamp, a regular lamp in your house. That usually is a lighting instrument. So it could be any kind of light that people would have in their house, whether it's a lamp or a desk light or whatever. That's called a practical. It's just background. That's just background.
Okay, fair enough. So, and in line with that, my background selections are by design. You see a lot of Star Wars in the background. I mean, you want to talk about any franchise that is, nearly universally loved across generations, it's there. And if they're not a Star Wars fan, if they're a Trekkie fan, I had this with Larry Walsh, it's equally an opportunity for conversation. It doesn't matter. I have my DJ equipment in the background, even though I haven't done a public event in over 20 years. But it's there on purpose because most technophiles are audiophiles. Usually they have some love for, either sound engineering or studio work, or they were DJ in the past or public speaking, whatever, but they have some kind of thing. So it's meant to prompt conversation, gauge, pique their interest. And it also gives you insight into what drives them. Like Dave's saying, it gives me the ability to have another conversation and get insight into what makes them excited and what makes them going. So I see the questions over and over again asking, what's the gear? What are you using? So we'll get through that. I think we've teased them enough. And once again, speaking of gear, Dave does use a teleprompter. And that's what this is here. Not the same one, but we are going to be giving this away for the best question as selected by Simon. So it'll be impartial. So please ask your questions. And that's why I use a teleprompter, so you don't have the stuttering. So we'll start with Lauren. Lauren, what are you using, man? We'll camera first, then mic.
Yeah, so I've got a Sony Alpha camera, so a DSLR that I'm using, and it's the 6100 model. And then on that, it's just a Sigma 35 millimeter lens, f1.4. As far as the microphone, it's a Shure SM7B, and then I use a couple of audio interfaces with that. It's a DBX 286S, and then the Scarlett or Focusrite Scarlett 4i4, just to bring that into the computer with. So that's what I've recently been working with. But up until that point, we were talking about this a little bit before things kind of kicked off, just in terms of another camera webcam that I have, which was my go-to up until recently. It's just the Logitech C925E model, which you can pick up anywhere for right around $100, and has really fantastic video quality in terms of what it offers, especially if you go in and if you're able to adjust some settings and tweak them from the auto settings. And and kind of take control of those manual adjustments, then you can get even more mileage, out of that same $100 camera. So
Yeah, and that C920, it's the old standard, right? The 920, 930E, whatever, 922, same family of cameras. That's what you're using here, right, BJ?
Correct. I mean, it's the Logitech C920. I'm using a Jabra Engage headset. This has probably been my best quality of life addition in the last 7 months for myself. Being in some kind of video call all day, every day, I just needed something that it looked professional, gave me some range. I can get up, walk around, but and then I also have like a little stream deck for controlling my OBS virtual cameras and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a pretty simple setup along with a couple of lights and
and I think that's a perfect juxtaposition. Looking at Lauren's setup, looking at BJ's setup, the fancy camera, the better glass, that's going to give you that fuzzing that you see behind Lauren. It's a little different visual effect. The C920, typically a brighter camera, you're going to have more flat appearance, wider picture. And you still got to fuzz with the settings, regardless of what you're using. But you see the picture quality on both is very good. I mean, there's no bad here as far as picture quality. And that's why I kind of want to shy people away from doing, yes, you can go get your Mark III and, go spend a ton of money on camera and gear and lighting and stuff. But I would argue with the proper lighting, you can make even nominal cameras look pretty darn good. Would you agree with that, Sharon? It's all about the lighting, or it's more about the lighting than
I can't really speak to what I have because my IT service provider, Dave Sobel, put it in for me.
She has I both have the Logitech C920s.
Yeah, I don't know what I got here. I can run around a camera all day long, but when it comes to my computer, I just ask Dave, fix it, make it work. This is what I got. But I want to just mention earlier, I saw in the comments someone was saying, well, I'm not going to mess around with my background and all that to jump on a call. Hey, I'm with you. That's why I got what I've got going on here. But when I am making a video specifically to tell a message, I'm not using the Logitech C920 thing. I'm going to my other spot in the house at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when my lighting's the best. I can get away with not even putting up a light most times. I put my teleprompter on there. I have a regular camera, and then I go. But that's also the difference in I already know I'm going to be wanting to add an open to it. I'm going to be doing stuff to it, so I don't bother running anything through my computer that I'm going to be putting out to potential clients or clients. That's my choice as a video producer. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with whatever anyone else is doing, as long as it looks good.
I think this is the message you're talking about, Keith, saying, the difference between a call and a webinar. Doing both several times a day, I will argue that consistency in presentation is important. You're walking into a meeting. You wouldn't walk into a meeting with the client at their conference table and throw everything all over the table. You'd still want to be neat and well kept. It's the same thing when you're doing a call. Maybe not the same level of presentation as you do a webinar, but I would say when you're doing a call, you still want to have some level of professionalism. Dave, what are you using? I know you're not using a C920.
So I have two different setups, and they are situational depending on the kind of content that I'm doing, and that's actually sort of important. So this setup is what I consider the rapid production setup, right? So that is a C920. Mine is in a teleprompter here, so that if you watch my new weekly version of the podcast as a show, that's produced using this. My mic is the Rode Podcaster mic. I've got the USB one just because I didn't want to deal with a mixer board and one more piece of gear. So I just plug it in. I can do everything electronically. If you've watched my stand-ups, like the stand-up editorial pieces, like that stuff is done. That's done with my iPhone XS. That's on a tripod mount. It's then put into another teleprompter rig. Generally sits kind of right over here, and then that has an attachable Rode, the shotgun mic. I'm blanking on exactly which one it is, but there's a shotgun mic that
NT or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever that one is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
clips on, shotgun mic, plug it into the lightning port, and I'm getting that way. I'm pointing that right at where I'm at. It's got the nice windscreen, and then the other little detail I was left about is I have a pair of hotel drawstrings for that you might see in the bathrooms. They run one that way and one sideways, so that I can hang blankets or green screens depending on what I need. So right now I've got a pair of blankets hanging on that side. I was doing some videos earlier, so they're just kind of hanging, blocking that bit so that I can change the sound a little bit.
They're called clotheslines, Dave. Clotheslines.
Thank you, clotheslines. I was blanking, but I just, you bill right over the mistake. So for me, because I make three kinds of sets of content in my head, and I always think of mine as like TV shows, that I produce TV shows. There is the most polished one, which is where you're seeing me do like an editorial or a speak to camera like piece. That's the stuff that I do stand up on the in the 4K with the iPhone. There is like the weekly rapid stuff, which is where I'm doing it to this setup. And then there's the interview stuff where I'm doing it generally using Zoom or a platform like Stream. I'm migrating to a platform like StreamYard, where I'm actually able to capture somebody interview style. So I've got the two different setups depending on what kind of content I'm making.
And Heather also on camera a lot, brings up an excellent point. It's, don't sit right against your background. Don't be right against, you want to get some depth. If you look, we talked, BJ's virtual background has some depth to the frame. Lauren, myself, Dave, all of us, even Sharon, we all have a good amount of space behind us. It comes out so much better. For myself, I'm actually using, and I really want to point out over and over again, Dave does this for a living. This is his revenue stream, and he's recording with a C920 or an iPhone. He didn't say some $12,000 camera. Please don't go crazy on this stuff. You don't have to.
There's an important point to that because I mean, like, well done content that you are deliberate and thoughtful about putting together high value stuff is 90% of it. I mean, it's people will listen to when you have something interesting, well put together to say, versus like something that's just flash and no substance. And that for me is the difference. Is, I'll give you the example. We talked about production time. I do a 5-minute daily podcast that takes 2.5 hours to put together every single day. Like a 5 minutes of content that I take 2.5 hours to put together. Why? Because it's the best 5 minutes that I can produce versus I shot it, threw it out there, and you just get to do. No, it's like thought and edited, and written, and put together so that it is very deliberate. So that because I'm trying to sell hey, you're going to get some real value out of investing your time with this.
And that's an excellent point. We were talking about, an hour's worth of editing for every 10 minutes recorded. That's post-production. Pre-production time, gathering the content and all that fun stuff. That's a whole different thing. I want to go ahead and answer on my equipment. I'm using an A5100 Sony. They don't even make it they don't sell it anymore. I also have an overhead camera with the exact same thing. I'm using a Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4. Those 1.4s get you better low light, and you get that bokeh in the background, which I really love. Lauren and mine, you can see that. The C920 is not going to give you that. But again, if you want your background crystal clear, that's not what you're looking for anyway. It doesn't matter. It's the intentionality of the design. And then I'm using, I think all of us across the board are using some kind of, maybe not Sharon, but all of us, the rest of us across the board are using some kind of lighting. I'm in my office with the lights off. This is what my office looks like right now. I'm using Dasney lights, again, key fill on purpose with the pretty lights behind me. I am going to put out, Simon will put a banner. I did make a doc I get asked so many times what I use. So I did make a doc with a list of a bunch of things with a bunch of different options on the cheap end and on the more expensive end. Nothing pro audio, maybe prosumer at the best. And then microphone selection. I'm using a Rode Procaster by design, going to a 12-channel mixer. I've been doing audio for a very long time. I do public speaking. I'm very comfortable with using a dynamic microphone and I have it tuned to my voice. This mic was selected for my voice type. If you're going to go down the path of buying an NT4 and NT1, the Rode Shotgun mics are fantastic. You know, especially if you don't want the mic in the screen, you want it out of the screen. I'm not going to touch my mic while I'm talking. Don't ever do that. Those are fantastic, but realize they will pick up nearly everything around you.
Right, yours and my mic are the same model. The difference is yours is the XLR out and mine's the USB out. But they are exactly the same mic.
Well, we can get into that later. There's minor differences.
Yeah, anybody who's looking at it for this level, it's the same mic, right?
It's the same mic, absolutely. And I would even argue USB mic. The Podcaster is fantastic. The Yeti Blue is fantastic. You know, USB is very easy to do. Grab yourself a pop filter. Grab yourself some kind of protection for shaking or anything like that. Good quality. Don't cheap out on the mic stand if you're going to use a mic stand. But it's not a big deal. Otherwise, do USB mic, make your life easy. It's not that important. It will pick up everything. So, but yeah, so let's go into and I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat as well, as far as the audio and video recommendations. But let's go into content preparation, right? Because I get to cheat. Well, I get to have a marketing meeting with Simon and with my art department and with Sean, and we talk about some topics, we make some show notes, and then I get to do it off the cuff, and it really doesn't matter because live streaming is so much easier. But you spend hours developing the content you're going to use before you actually go. So can you walk us through at a high level, because I'm realizing it's 1:53 already. At a high level, how do you choose the content you're going to talk about, and then what goes into that, preparing it for the screen?
So from my perspective, I do two processes. The first is that I design the high level of what the show is. I think about everything that I produce like television and radio shows. Like I specifically think of them that way. I produce series, and what series does what. So for example, The Business of Tech is a 5-minute daily news program that combines commentary and news, right? And I design the format, and then I think very intensely about the audience. I want to talk to IT services people that are people that are delivering IT services to the small and mid market. So I've thought very much about the audience, and I've thought about the format and the production cycle that I want to be on. And that drove the next bit. So every day I'm saying I've got to pick 3 to 4 stories that fit thematically with everything that I just said. So they have to be relevant, they have to be interesting, and they have to have something that I have a piece of value to add to. Well, thanks, Heather. I appreciate that. So I think every day, like my big hook is I ask the why do we care question for every story. Why do I care about this? And that drives that piece, right? Then for me, I have the second series in my head is the editorials, which is I laugh and go, when I have something to rant about, right? There is something that has hit me that I want to rant about. Be it somebody's choice of a stock ticker, to a Microsoft move, to whatever it is. I got inspired by something, and I want to say something and deliver some kind of message. The third is I want to do an interview show, right, where I intentionally want to talk to somebody, and I want to ask them questions about something. That's another kind of show that I think through. And for that, I'll prep who is the person, why am I interested in them, and what questions am I going to ask? Some of them are free form, like I will totally do that. But when I do an interview, I have 10 questions that I have already decided I'm asking about this. I may throw them out when we get going, but I have something I'm interested in. And then finally, I've got the new show, which is the video version of the podcast, which is essentially 25-minute version where I've rolled all the podcasts together into a weekly version of it to watch on YouTube. So but each one you can see is designed as a show with an audience, an intention, and a message. Then inside of it, I'm looking for things that fit those criteria. Oftentimes it really is what's interesting to me. Like I have expertise. I like to believe that my audience is leveraging my expertise. I have been doing this a while. I know the space. If it's interesting to me, 90% of the time, it's probably going to be interested to my audience because I've thought about it.
So let me ask you a question as we get into that. you do a lot of planning, you do a lot of scripting. I saw comments. Some people like scripting, some people don't. There's different methods to the scripting. Some people go word for word, some just do talking points. I'm of the latter camp. Yeah, I do bullet points because even if it was word for word, I go off the cuff regardless.
Yep.
Bad habit from the live stuff. But what are you doing word for word in your scripting, or how do you keep that personal when you're talking so it doesn't sound robotic?
Yeah, so it's so the answer is, again, it's a little bit to where the content is. So for example, something like this, or if somebody has me on, I don't script that, right? That's me talking. But if I'm delivering a particular message or one of the news shows, that is scripted. And I'll even say, like, I iterate a lot, and Sharon's been really useful as a script editor for exactly this. Is sometimes periodically I'll throw her a script. We just did this recently, where I was saying, like, these are not sounding right, like it's coming across too scripted, and she'll go, oh, you're writing for the eye, not writing for the ear, and she edited one up, and then that resets me going, oh, okay, I see what I'm doing. She's right. Sentences are too long, shorter words, more tight. The reason I like to do the scripted is that I know I can be on time, on target. Particularly when I say I have 5 minutes to deliver stuff. 5 minutes is not that much time. Like, every word has to be chosen to hit that time frame. But if you're having me on to say, like, let's talk about a topic for 10 or 15 minutes, I can be a lot looser, and that's bullet point. So it's about choosing which methodology. And then you ask about how making it natural. Yeah, practice. Like sometimes I will do something 4, 5, 7, 10 times on a take to make sure that it sounds right. And because by the first read is never quite the right read. The second read is almost always the best read, or the third or the fourth. But
that part kills me. That drives me nuts, because I will sit there, and I've spent my lifetime working not to have ums and uhs and, those things that we fall back on, that it's just natural in conversation. There we go. I do my best not to repeat words, to use different words in different sentences, but I've done that over my entire life, learning to speak publicly live. And I can do that. I can wax poetic for 6 or 7 hours without issue.
sure.
If I in front of a camera to do something pre-recorded, no lie, my last I did a 5-minute promo, or I'm sorry, I did a minute and a half promo for our Cloud Connection Summit last year. It took me 37 takes for a 90-second promo.
Yep.
And that probably goes to also, I was doing my own editing, because Sharon, I'm sure Sharon would be screaming, don't do that, I'll cut it up. But I'm one of those types that I like to do the one and done. So I'll do that for as many takes as it takes. BJ, content selection, pre-recorded content. I know you said you came across, now I can't stop saying now I know you said you came across a YouTube channel, the popularity of it, the subscriber count, the revenue generation. It wasn't by design initially. Now that it's proven itself and it is a revenue stream for you, how are you selecting the content that goes into it?
Honestly, a lot of it comes from, like, reviewing tickets. What's a problem we're having right now? So the last video I put up felt really dumb, but it was like how to build a Dell monitor. It's done better than I thought it would. I mean, I thought I'd get like 20 views from the client that we were sending a bunch of monitors to, and it's over 1,000 views. Again, not retiring on that, but it's just little things like that, which it's what's applicable to my life at the moment most of the time, or what's applicable to our client's life at the moment.
And that's a funny thing, because that's exactly how I do it as well. When we're picking partner first guests, and we're picking tech bar guests, and whatever else I'm doing, or if I'm doing, the little OBS mini videos that we do on YouTube, whatever I'm doing, it's from conversations. One of our most popular videos was the Intune video that we did with Ernest Murray over at Genuine Technology. And that was from a 2 a.m. conversation I was having in Discord in March of last year of how are we going to get these PCs deployed without having to go on site. And it was, oh, we should do this. And we did in 5 days. And we're like, okay, let's do it live. And that's, I think today it's still our top rated video on YouTube. But life gives you the topics. You just have to be paying attention. Dave saying it, BJ saying it, I'm saying it. Lauren, do you agree? Life's just telling you what to do. You just got to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good starting ground, is exactly kind of where you are, pulling ideas from, the work that you're already doing. Um, you don't have to fight for it as much in trying to come up with something creative then, right? It's just kind of right there in front of you, and you take those, and we've put a couple of videos out, but we don't do too much. But that's what we've kind of started with, are things that, like you say, are applicable now and relevant to us, in hopes that obviously that's going to be relevant to somebody else as well.
Well,
So I got to call this out. I know we're running a little late on time. Keith just unknowingly gave the best compliment he could possibly give. The tech bar reminds me of Johnny Carson. So it's not designed after that at all, but the overarching show design, as far as the show notes and that kind of, and our cadence and the way we do our segments, very much takes its themes from the Johnny Carson show. And also, I'm still actively looking for a good quality replica SM33 ribbon mic. If anybody finds one, let me know, for under $1,000. So, but yeah, it's that, because I think Johnny had one of the more personable late night shows of any of the people in the industry. And that's exactly how Tech Bar was designed. It was meant to be drinks and conversations at a bar, not any kind of variety show or any kind of sketch comedy. It was just meant to be fun, personable conversations. So thank you for that, Keith. I appreciate it. I cannot believe that we've already gotten to 12:03 p.m. My clock is off already. Thank you, Windows updates. But I can't believe we've already spent more than an hour doing this. I want to thank each of you. I know there's so much more we wanted to go through, but this conversation, maybe we'll do another one another day. I know there's plenty of content that we could cover. Dave and Sharon, thank you so much. Once again, the Business of Tech, fantastic podcast series. Now with 3 different types of content. Is that was my math right?
Exactly. You can get on your favorite podcatcher. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, get content there, or whatever makes the most sense for you. And then if for my Patreons, the people that support me directly, they can actually get written versions of every story every day and subscribe to the Daily Digest. There's a bunch of different ways of consuming the content.
You don't have to answer the question. You don't have to give what the answer was, but I know one of your Patreon things is they get to ask a question. Can you give us what your favorite question was?
Well, so there's so many little ones that it's really the people. So my Patreons, the people that are in the direct community supporting the content, we're just having literal conversations about they're bringing me stuff about their business, or they want my opinion on a particular strategy, and that's just such fun. I love talking to MSPs about what they're doing and getting insight into the strategies. So that's the best stuff.
Awesome. Sharon, thank you so much. Sharon, digital media producer, her URL is on the screen. Sharon, thank you so much for being part of this. The people on camera always get the platitudes, always get the thanks, always get the compliments, but you're the one doing the real work in the background. Your stuff is so much harder. So thank you for your insight, Sharon. I appreciate you.
It doesn't have to be harder. Remember, if you shoot it right at the beginning, there's less work on the backside.
Fair enough. BJ, thanks for being part of this, man. We appreciate it. Yeah, man. And Lauren Thomas, Prism Corporation, good friend of mine for several years now. Proud to know both of you. Any parting words before we let you go?
just do it. Have some fun.
Yeah,
I love it. So Simon, what is we have this podcaster here. We have our giveaway. I should learn product placement at some point. Is that the question? That's the one we're going with. Brian Lichtig, what about scripts for vlogs? Where do you place scripts while you're talking? Dave, you want to answer that one real quick? Where do you place your scripts?
Well, so I mean, I'm using it under the teleprompter. So there's just exactly what you've got in your hand. It's placed on a device. I use Prompt Smart Pro, I think, is the one which listens to my voice and scrolls as it goes. But then it's my iPad or iPhone, like in this case, gets dropped right here in the little tray and reflected back at me.
And Brian, you'll be able to use that with this. This is the same one I use. It comes with its own app. Don't use it. It comes with a recorder, with a remote control. you can use the one Dave mentioned, and it'll still work on the phone because it's just your phone or your tablet, whatever you want to do. And it's so much better when it's voice activated. It makes life so much easier. So congratulations, Brian. Simon will reach out to you and get this to you. Once again, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. This has been fun. Hopefully, we've given you some tips and tricks on looking your best on your video calls or your live stream or your webinars or your pre-recorded content. If you come up with any of this stuff and you feel you've had a measurable improvement after seeing this episode, tag me. I want to see it. Our socials are down below. Definitely want to see what the before and after look like and what you did to improve. Let's continue the conversation online. Guys, have an awesome rest of your day, rest of your week. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.